I'm going to start this podcast off with a very weird subject, but it's twofold, the end of which I'll reveal when we conclude the cold open. Okay.
So, like, I'm not going to know what you're talking about?
I mean, that's pretty much the gist of this podcast normally.
That's true. That's true. I don't know why I would be upset about that now.
That feels like it's a weird place to draw a line, episode 140.
Yeah. It's like, Deb, do you know what we're talking about today? No.
I want to talk about towels.
Like what kind of towels?
And I know we just lost half of the listening audience, but here's the conversation I want to have about towels.
Okay.
I use one towel a week, a body towel. Okay, a big body towel.
Yeah, you have giant towels.
And I have 6 of them. So every 6 weeks, I wash my towels.
Well, so let it be said.
I'm leading the towel discussion.
Okay, all right.
The towels that I possess are large.
Mm-hmm.
I think Deb had purchased them for me 15 plus years ago. So they are perfectly worn in.
They were originally purchased as beach towels, Kev.
Perfect for a 6'7" kid.
You confiscated them to be your towels.
In no way is that true, because here's what happened. Here's exactly what happened.
They're sherbet.
Deborah, quiet. Listen, here's a little spoiler alert. Deb had some wine earlier today, so Deb is a little talkative. So I did not like put my hand up and say, these towels are now the property of Kevin's. You have a 6'7" child who's 22 moving back into the house from college. You get what you get.
Yeah, that's true.
What you got, Kev, was bright orange towels that actually fit your body, even though they're made for normal people to take to the beach. Fast forward to today.
Yeah.
I still use them.
Right.
But here's what breaks my brain. I don't know that I can envision a life without these towels, because you have tried to, in the past, integrate new towels into my life. And here's the thing about towels. When they're new, they're the worst. Mm-hmm. How can something that's brand new, that's never been used by someone, be worse than the thing that's 15 years old?
Because, well, here it is. If it's a good quality towel, and I do think we buy fairly good quality towels, that because of the plushness of them, it's kind of like a chamois in the beginning.
It feels like somebody sprays the things that you like will coat fabric with, that non-stain stuff. Yeah. It feels like somebody hoses the towels down with that, to where it's like, I know this is meant to soak up water, but it just repels it and pushes it back on your skin.
Exactly. It's kind of like that chamois, where, you know how chamois just move water around?
Yep.
And then you kind of have to wring it out, but it just moves water around more. That's kind of what, like, until a towel has been washed, and I'm not saying 3 or 4 times. I'm saying it's many times.
15 years.
Maybe not 15 years. But because right now in my bathroom, I have new towels, meaning like 4 months old.
Okay.
And they're still a problem for me.
But this is what I don't get. How did we as a society allow Big Towel to give us a product that we actually don't want? Because if you think about it, it's just the color. We're willing to buy new towels just for the color, because nobody's over here being like, oh my gosh, you know what the best feeling thing in the world is? That slick towel that doesn't absorb any water and just kind of sloughs it off to the ground. And then when I hang it up there, it kind of drips because it's got some neon polymer on it that nothing will ever adhere to it until I wash the hell out of it.
So let me tell you this. I was in Mexico and I experienced, I want to say, an incredible towel.
Okay.
And it was super, super thick. And it was like, it was right in the beginning, like a spa-ish right in the beginning. And so because I think everything should be super affordable in Mexico, I go to the store where my friend told me she got the towels. So this was in Mexico, like a bath sheet, which we like the bath sheets. We like the big towels, not a towel.
I mean, imagine me using a normal towel that feels big to you. Now increase your size by a foot and add an additional 50 pounds to you. And imagine trying to use that towel.
Right. Well, but our whole household uses, bath sheets. But they were $100
per
each,
towel.
Per towel. Now, I want to say they were magnificent. But I touched them. I unfolded them. I felt them. They were perfection, and you would have loved them on the first swipe.
No way.
No, you would have. They didn't have the weird thing. It was like a thick, gorgeous towel that was right from the very beginning. But they were $100 each. So I always think that I should have 4 of those, right? I mean, like to interchange with washing and stuff.
But I just think
So I can't spend $400.
and who would? Who in their
People
right
do.
that makes absolutely no sense to me. That you have to go buy something that's 3 figures that you can go buy at Walmart for what, 90% off of that?
Well, I don't know.
But I have to spend years cultivating, washing, putting through the literal ringer sometimes, something to actually perform at its optimum level.
I think the towels you have literally were beach towels. I mean, like at
I
Costco.
agree.
And I mean, I'm sure I didn't pay more than $15 or $20 each for them.
So here's my question, because I was washing them today. Today was wash day. What am I going to do? Because those orange towels only make sense in this house. And they don't make even sense with any of the color combinations in this house.
No,
but
because they were for Lake Tahoe.
But they only make sense in the Zener family home because at least this home is like, well, these towels are an abomination visually, but
they've been here.
But
We love
they've
'em.
been here and they're a part of us. If we were to move, if I was to ever find my own place, insert laugh track here, I can't possibly bring those towels with me because the towels, you kind of, like, if you think about it, you build your color scheme of your bathroom off of your towels.
Yeah.
And my orange towels are going to be the bedrock for what, some 1990s roller skate themed bathroom?
Well, it should be noted that in your bathroom, you do have regular towels that are the coordination, the color of your bathroom.
And they're slicker than a hardwood floor on socks.
They've only hung on the towel racks and got shaken out to be rehung because you don't ever use them.
I remember when you bought those like brown towels and those gray towels, which absolutely fit the aesthetic of the bathroom. And I came to you and I said, there's something wrong with these towels. Like they're not doing what towels are fundamentally supposed to do. It just is like pushing water off. It's not absorbing. And then I've washed them figuring that there was, I don't know, just some chemical component to it. And they somehow got worse. Like my brain cannot process the idea that we, again, I'm going to say, buy these things fully knowing they're not going to do what we need them to do. But we're like, well, if you just keep them around long enough and spend more money on washing them, eventually, maybe someday they'll be good.
Wow. Do you think that do you feel like your towels are soft?
Yes, for sure they're soft.
And absorbent?
But I would prefer them to actually be more rough and coarse because I know that those adjectives are going to actually do the job of what I need done out of a shower. I don't need a soft towel. I don't want something that I can film a commercial with where I'm like and warm inside my towel that doesn't do anything.
You want those $100 towels in
I
Mexico.
don't.
Yes,
I
you
just
do.
want the cheap towel that does what any other piece of fabric I put on my body does.
I'm telling you, I just stayed at a hotel and somebody asked me, it was the hotel in Mexico City that you and I stayed at.
Okay.
Which was fine. It was a Hyatt. It was a great property. Clean. Do you think clean?
Super
spotless? Clean. Good service. Great service.
I mean, at the point that they understood my English.
Yeah.
Yes, it was great service. Getting there after 15 minutes was tough.
So somebody asked me, because it was very affordable, and somebody said to me, like, how much is it and is there anything wrong with it? I said, there's nothing wrong with it. It's certainly a newer hotel. It's spotless. It's good. The service is great. However, what I said is the linens suck. They were inexpensive, cheap linens. And that's what happens when you buy inexpensive, cheap linens. These already looked worn out. They looked thin and weathered. You have to pay at least enough money that they last. But you're right. You want to get them past that slick, non-absorbent place, which I think is technically a much more expensive, I'm going to call it a spa towel. It's something about the weave of it. And it's $100.
You're
by the
probably
way.
right.
It's $100.
But I still think it's ridiculous. Do you want my reveal that I teased at the beginning of the cold open?
Mm-hmm.
I made a bet with myself that I couldn't talk about towels
Oh, okay.
for 10 plus minutes.
Have you done it?
We did it. Congratulations, Kev. You talked about it. Here's that $10 I owe you. Thank you so much, Kev. Let's start the podcast.
Welcome to the Deb and Kev podcast. One is a Harvard Business School alum. The other is her son, discussing business, pop culture, family, and everything in between. Now, here are your hosts, Deb and Kev.
Hey, hi, hello, and welcome to the Deb and Kev podcast. With us, as always, is the Julie Newmar of this podcast. It's my mom, Deb.
I'm Deb.
And that makes me Noxema Jackson. I'm her son, Kev, and this is our podcast.
Who is Noxema
$20
Jackson?
if you get the reference.
Wait, I know who Julie Newmar is.
20. I am about paying off this podcast today. I already paid myself winnings from talking about towels for 10 minutes.
Say the name again one more time.
Noxema Jackson. Julie Newmar
Yes.
is a reference in the movie I'm talking about.
Is it the movie with Patrick Swayze?
Yep.
And
Yep.
yeah, those guys.
Come on,
Like,
who's the black guy from it? He's an action star. Got sued by the IRS.
Yeah, no, I know.
Get it.
Don't tell me because I just saw him like for a new movie.
He was Blade.
Went to jail. He's Blade. I'll think of it. Why can't I think of? I know his name.
His last name is an action a sharpshooter would do.
Oh, I know his name. I say his name all the time to you.
Do you?
Well, I mean,
you definitely don't.
No, because I make fun of him because he went to jail.
Oh yeah,
'Cause
that's
he didn't pay
Deb
his
and I
taxes.
pretty much every day just make fun of this one actor
Not
for
one guy.
constantly going to jail.
But he's easy to poke fun at because you've got all the money in the world and you didn't pay your taxes.
Do you want me to tell you?
Yeah,
You know who else was in the movie?
the Latin guy.
John Leguizamo.
Yeah, John Leguizamo.
Patrick Swayze, John Leguizamo. The
And-
movie's name is Tu Wong Fu. Thanks for everything,
that's-
Julie Newmar.
Yep.
I watched that a lot as a kid, and I don't
love
know
that
why.
movie.
Get there. He's Blade.
I know exactly who he is. I can describe him physically.
Do you want his initials?
Okay, yeah.
WS.
Wesley Snipes.
There you go.
Yeah.
On today's show, we will recap the always convoluted gameplay of Survivor Season 41. And in her business segment, Deb is posing a question. New to leadership? Here's what you can do. And for our third segment, we have a surprise. What's it going to be? Don't worry, you'll find out. And like a 1950s private school nun does to your knuckles, we'll wrap this whole thing up by telling you what's for dinner and what we're thankful for. But first, Deb,
Kev.
give us a dad update.
Okay, so what was our last update? Do you remember, honey?
Last, he was still in the hospital, and true to form for you and I, we managed to laugh about a lot of different things, which I think makes other people very uncomfortable. But I can tell you this right now. Deb and I cannot help you. Deb and I cannot be around serious situations if you don't allow us to find the humor in it. So if you are looking for people who are going to sit in a puddle of sadness with you, or you're going to look for someone who will walk you through this emotional turmoil with just an even keel, monotone disposition, that's not us. If we don't laugh, we'll cry. So we go to the laughter side of things.
So listen, we have cried for sure. We have
Yep.
cried. We have had our moments. I've certainly never cried for hours or days, but I have had like where a tough day, like everything can kind of, make me really teary.
Oh, yeah.
We have those days. Obviously, nobody wants to experience that on a podcast, I don't think,
You crying?
Yeah, just
I mean, it
crying.
could be good for it, Deb. Maybe we get those viewership ratings up a little bit.
Maybe, but we do tend to find humor in a lot of this, right?
Big time. So just to fill in the gaps here, he is home.
He's home. So
Dad is home.
So here's what happened. The hospital was a bit of a roller coaster.
For sure.
There was a surgery in a hospital. There was pneumonia in the hospital. There was a blood infection in the hospital. I mean, if the hospital didn't kill him, it was actually a miracle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Though I do want to say, I think overall we got incredible service in the hospital. I mean, it was a good patient experience overall.
You and I said at the beginning of the week when we took him to the ER that we needed answers. We needed clarity. And what you and I won't do once we get those answers and we get that clarity is be upset by the way it was provided to us. Now, we weren't happy that it came from checking him into the ER on Thanksgiving Eve, and we weren't happy that answers came in the form of surgeries and medication, but it gave it to us. We know what we're dealing with. Lord knows Dad doesn't deal with that kind of stuff in the same way, but we sit in a place of being grateful that we now at least have that information.
Well, and it should be known that the first time Gary had cancer, like 12 years ago, he was like, Deb, you take over. And that worked pretty well for us. This time he was like, no, I've got it. Okay.
Yep.
That didn't work as well for us, right? Meaning just as a family unit.
Mostly because the way Dad does stuff is not the way Deb and I do stuff. And if anything, Deb and I might come across as control freaks.
Yeah.
But that's good in cases of cancer.
Oh my God, we're the best. If you have cancer, call us. We will be your advisors. We will advocate for you because there's nothing to stop us. As of the Monday before Thanksgiving, which is when Kevin decided to have, unbeknownst to me, unbeknownst to Gary, to have a family intervention in the middle of the kitchen.
Somebody needed to be the adult in the room.
As of then, we have since taken over and everything is different now.
Yeah.
And now everybody should be worried. I mean, not Dad, but all the doctors, all the nurses.
Yeah, everybody who works in the medical profession
should be worried.
Is terrified.
Yeah, and if I have your cell phone number, and I do have a few, like, you should be worried. If you don't respond to me, like, you should be worried. I mean, it's just like, I am now ready to take on the world.
Do you think people should be worried?
For sure.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
So, I mean, I have said Yelp and Google so many times this week to get somebody to pay attention to me. It's ridiculous. So, Dad was, I think, overall a really good patient as well.
Oh, for sure.
I will say the last day and a half, it was antsy to get out of there, like bad.
He was telling the nurses and doctors how good he felt, right?
Yeah,
and he was going to do the things that he could control to let everybody know
how good
he was doing.
Mr. Optimism.
But the problem is when you're in a hospital, they can run tests on you and they can look at numbers and they can be like, hey, I'm happy you had that extra cup of cranberry juice. But if we let you leave, you take 10 steps outside the door and die. So we're going to follow the numbers, not what you're doing.
And I even said, actually, as a test, I think it was the day before he got out, I said, hey, how about a shower today? Like, weird that nobody had suggested that. But he'd been there for a week.
Well, because they've been wiping him down with something that's even worse than a towel, some pack that you open up and you just like lightly scrub their back with.
They throw it in the microwave.
Yeah.
It's not really a sponge bath. It's a weird thing. Anyways, sponge bath would infer a sponge and a bath.
And somebody actually like cleaning you with clean water.
All this did was, I think it was a form of disinfectant. They could have just sprayed him
I think it was more like, instead of washing, it was like chemical burns. We're going to burn the bacteria off of you.
So I said, how about a shower today? Now, there was an ulterior motive in that. I didn't really think that he could last. I mean, stand up and be there and do a shower and all that. They did have a funny little seat in the shower. So I thought, oh, he could sit there. But I really thought like it would be way too much for him. Interestingly enough, like, wow, he went in, took a shower, stood for the shower. The shower, I'm going to say, was kind of tight, had a lot of bars. So if he would have fallen, he would have just slumped against the wall.
Yeah, he just would have like kind of been knocked against this really small shower back and forth.
It was small. It was small.
If he fell forward, it could have been catastrophic. But 3/4 of the way, he would have been absolutely fine.
Exactly. And I got up there. The shower was over. They had a new gown on him, clean sheets on the bed. And I'm telling you, he was the happiest guy in the world. And I was like, man, he did it. So first day home, Daddy was literally in a prayerful gratefulness to the gods of linens and pillows and mattresses. Like, I mean, that was it.
Talking again about fabric, the blankets at the hospital were rubbing his elbows raw.
Oh, it was horrible. It was horrible. Horrible. And, of course, those stupid gowns. Do you know what I mean? They're ridiculous. And so he just like it was pure pleasure, him climbing into bed.
Yeah.
I mean, just pure pleasure. And so the first day home was Thursday, and I think it was pretty good. He slept a lot. He was just happy to be home, I want to say, Friday was a bad day. And Friday he was in a lot of pain. He didn't feel good. We had a doctor's appointment, ended up taking him back to the hospital for some imaging tests. I mean, we were kind of running him all over town for tests on Friday, and a little worried. I was a little worried that when we got blood values and stuff back, we might end up back in the hospital. But as it turned out, they put him on a couple new meds. The medicines are it's a long list, but he ended up feeling way better yesterday. Yesterday was a great day. Now, this should be noted. Hospitals make mistakes. Read the fine print. The hospital said apparently Tylenol is really bad for your kidneys and liver, okay?
Okay, good to know.
So to all the healthy people of the world, don't overdose on Tylenol, okay?
Don't do it.
Don't do it. And so they said no more Tylenol at all. Now, Dad has not been taking narcotics at all, right? And so no Tylenol, no ibuprofen. He can't take any of that. So then it goes kind of straight to the narcotic realm because, and it kind of goes to the oxy realm because I think the hydrocodone, Vicodin things all have Tylenol in them as well.
Yes.
So it did say, however, feel free to take 2 Tylenol PMs at night.
Because your kidneys, here's what everybody knows about your body. At night, your kidneys don't do anything. They hibernate. Everybody who knows anything about the human anatomy knows that the 2 organs that just stop punching in at night are the kidneys.
So the front piece of paper says absolutely no more Tylenol.
Mm-hmm.
The second piece of paper says feel free to take Tylenol PMs.
Unless you want some.
Okay, yeah, unless you want some, which he did. I mean, he just obeyed the paper,
yeah.
Right? And 1 o'clock in the morning, woke up, horrible kidney pain. I'm convinced, I'm not a medical person. All you medical people maybe say no. I'm convinced those Tylenol caused it. It seems to have calmed down a little bit, though we've taken he's taken 2 oxycodones.
Which led to a very interesting interaction between he and I today.
But let me just finish this. Let me finish this, then you tell that. But we've gotten him in the shower at home. We've done that. I do want to say for anyone that has, our downstairs shower is a normal shower. Not you and I have walk-in showers, but it's a normal tub shower. If you are with that kind of thing and you have somebody that needs help, there's a bench. It's available on Amazon. It's called a transfer bench. It sits half in the tub and half out the tub. And I'm telling you, it is slick. It is the answer. They just scoot across it. It is as safe as can be. It's stable. It's wonderful. So it's really giving him the independence to be able to shower and get dressed in there and take care of himself.
It's made from brand new towels.
Yeah, it's not.
Slide right on across.
Slide right on across, exactly. But he's eating a little more now that he's home, which is good. He's not eating a lot, but his meals look more like regular meals. And I would say, he's happy to be home, though he doesn't have enough to do.
So he's not driving.
Of course
and that's a big part of Dad's freedom. Dad will come and go 15 times a day.
A zillion times a day.
But he's not driving because he is, not physically capable of driving right now. He's not strong enough to drive. He's not alert enough to drive. He also has a massive catheter attached to him right now with a huge hose and a huge bag and some other box thing that's attached to it.
I don't know why we need the box thing anymore.
But it's there. Plus, he's taking oxycodone. So a lot of things are working against him driving. So I'm in the kitchen this morning. I'm making some breakfast. And he comes in, says, hey. I said, hey. Asked me if I'll take him to a doctor's appointment Tuesday. I said, absolutely. Of course. $20 out the door. Flat rate.
Cheaper than Uber.
And then he says, I think I'm going to try to drive tomorrow. To which my back is turned to him at this point, and I'm sure I perk my head up. I turn around and I have a very Kevin face of questioning on. I said, do we think that's the best idea? And he says, well, I have more energy. And I said, I don't think being a successful driver has anything to do with having energy. Because I'm looking at you, because he's carrying around his catheter bag like it's a little briefcase.
Well, and he is frail right now.
and he's carrying around a catheter bag full of urine like he's going to urine business school. Okay. So I said, I just don't think you should be driving with this apparatus attached to you because it's difficult to navigate when you're walking. Imagine if something bad happens and you're driving. Not only are you going to get in an accident, you're going to get covered in pee. And that's just insult to injury at that point, right? So I tell you that and I go, do you know that he's thinking about driving tomorrow? And you go, he's on drugs.
He can't drive.
Can't
He's
drive.
taking oxycodone.
So I think maybe the drugs were off a little bit, and you had approached him with that topic, and he said, "Oh God, no, I'm not going to do that." So we managed to
but this
skirt
is,
that.
This is the truth of how it goes. He said that to you.
Yeah.
He saw your reaction.
Yeah.
He didn't say to you, "Hey, buddy, good idea." You know,
Yeah.
because now we're talking about everything,
Yeah.
right? We're open. And so then you come to me, which he's got to know. We're going to tell on him.
Well, because if I'm not here, and then all of a sudden he's like, "Well, Deb doesn't know that I'm thinking about driving. Watch me just,
Right.
vroom vroom on out of here."
And so I'm in the kitchen later, and he comes in the kitchen, and I go, "So, hey, what is this about driving tomorrow?" And he looks at me and goes, "Yeah, I'm not going to drive tomorrow."
Goddamn snitches.
And I go, "Okay, I think we should have a rule." And he goes, "What's the rule?" So I don't care about the catheter. Drive if you want. I don't care. I mean, hang it from the rear view
I was just
mirror
looking for an excuse in the moment, and him
Yeah.
carrying around his catheter briefcase seemed like a pretty good one.
I don't care. Hang it from the rear view mirror if you want. I said we have to have a 24-hour oxycodone rule.
Yeah.
Meaning that you have to have not taken it for at least 24 hours if you're going to drive. And he goes, "Yeah, good." And I think he's fine. He now knows he's arrived in jail hell between the two of us, and he's not going to get out.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm really worried about?
What's that?
His other family.
True. We have yet to receive any phone calls, texts, or emails. Nobody has knocked on our door yet, but it has been over a week since he's seen them, and I can only imagine.
No, it's been since the Monday before Thanksgiving. That's almost 2 weeks now.
They're probably worried about old Garrett. They're worried about Papa.
Yeah.
They haven't heard or seen from Papa in a little bit, and so that makes sense that they'd be a little curious about where their first husband is. So that's an update on him. Everything as good as could possibly be. He's home. He's happy. He's flirting with the idea of trying to maintain some sense of normalcy that we, immediately shoot down. But that's typically the relationship that we have anyway. So it's all good things. Deb, are you ready to talk Survivor?
Oh, so ready to talk Survivor. Again, I don't know that I even know what's going on anymore, but yes, I've watched it, and yes, I'm ready to talk about it.
Get out of here. It's day 20 out there in Fiji, and we immediately returned back to camp. And now remember, last week, my girl, Chantel, she got booted.
Shame, shame, shame.
She got booted real hard. That was one of my people. I have one person left. That's Xander. Deb has two people left. She has Danny and Liana.
And Liana was almost
mad.
close to hysterical.
Super duper
Yeah.
mad. The very first note I have here is back at camp, and Liana is big mad.
Yeah.
She, in a moment of total sanity and gameplay, said, all we did was cannibalize each other.
Yes.
Because you kicked out the fourth person of our group. It was 4 to 4. There was 8 of us left. 4 people in that alliance, 4 people in our alliance. That alliance came from one of our people, and you said, oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
And just because she's a strong player, you decided to get rid of her, and now we don't have the numbers. But the thing that I enjoyed was that when Chantel left, Chantel referred to Deshawn as a snake in the grass, which is hilarious to me because Ricard, her bestie, was the one that said, hey, I know all of you are coming at me, but what if we don't do that? What if we go to the person who told me that you were all coming for me and we just get Chantel out? And all of them were like, that seems reasonable enough to do that.
Let's go for that.
So here are some questions that I have for you that have nothing to do with this show necessarily. Xander, they put their profession under their name titles.
Oh, okay.
Xander is an app developer.
Okay.
What apps or app do you think Xander developed? Because technically, I feel like you and I could be app developers where we just sit in a room for 5 minutes and think about apps.
Yeah, I could think about a good app, like like a sustainability app, right? Wouldn't that be good?
What about an app that tells you where the newest, most absorbent towels are?
Look, that'd be a great.
I just
app.
developed an app.
Yeah, I'm going to develop an app about, hey, what's for dinner tonight?
What's for dinner tonight?
Yeah.
And you press the button and it's like a slot machine and it just lands on something.
And it lands on something, and then a picture of it pops up, and then if you like it, you swipe left. If you don't, you swipe right, and you get the recipe.
And no, it's delivered to you.
Oh, that's even better, Kev.
Did we just become billionaires?
I don't know, but that sounds like more work than just giving.
I'm just saying, we just developed an app.
Okay,
so
there we go.
I thought that was interesting that he develops apps. And what's also weird to me is Chantel called Deshaun a snake, right?
Right.
But Danny voted too. Your guy Danny also voted too. So how is Danny not a snake?
Okay. Danny is well, he was a professional football player.
He was.
And Danny, I feel like, is when he was a football player, I don't know what position he played or anything, but I feel like Danny got you when you weren't looking. Like you didn't pay any attention to Danny. Like Danny wasn't aggressive on the field. That makes sense.
On the field, he played ninja. You never saw him coming.
You never saw him coming.
Okay.
Danny is, I do think by nature he's kind and fair.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like that is his person.
Yeah.
That's who he wants to be. I do think he's trying to work out a lot of like, who am I going to be in this world? Meaning character issues, like with all of this. But like Danny flies below the radar. It's going to get, if they don't right now, there's the potential for the other group. I'm going to call it not the group of color. Do you know what I mean?
The less diverse group.
The less diverse group, to wipe out the people of color group.
So here's my question to you.
Danny will be the last to go.
Putting our picks aside, of the 7, Deshaun, Danny, Liana, Ricard, Xander, Erica, and Heather, who would you actually want to win now? Picks aside. If it's still Danny, it's still Danny, but picks aside.
Okay, like Ricard has really grown on me a lot.
Yep.
Okay, for sure, Danny, just because I think he's a really good guy. Deshaun just can't shut up. He's his own worst enemy.
He double talks constantly.
Double talks constantly. I appreciate the person that says, hey, I just lied. Do you know what I mean? At least they know they're doing it. Mm-hmm. And in fact, there was a moment this week with Xander where he was like, can you believe it? Like I'm kind of on top right now.
Yeah.
And the way he described it was the reality that I see, I could pick. So probably Danny, Ricard. God, I hate to pick all guys, but it's probably going to be Danny, Ricard, and Xander. And the only reason Xander is because it is a miracle he is still there. It is a miracle because he's a white guy. It's a miracle because he was surrounded by women.
Yep.
And on the first vote, they wanted to take him out.
Yep.
And he is still there. And not only is he still there, he was still there with his extra advantage. Does he still have an idol too?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it is unbelievable. They all know he has an idol. They all know he has an advantage, and yet he still doesn't get voted out.
So
it's
I would
wild.
say that I pick Ricard because I think Ricard has done a good job of jumping back and forth between groups, which is if you're able to do that where everybody thinks you're their friend because you are, then you become super dangerous. And if you're able to stay despite every single person knowing that you're dangerous, it's an even bigger credit to you.
Ricard also, if you watch him very calmly, and I say in a real collected kind of way, can easily put a really positive frame and explain away his deception.
Yeah.
He just does it really kind of cool, but not so smooth that you think he's sneaky.
Because all he would need to say is, it's an individual game and I'm trying to win $1 million. Here's the other note that I had. Danny needs to talk to a therapist or somebody he trusts because he has a lot of anger about his dad dying in a car crash.
That was all. I think that was all made up.
I don't think that was made up at all. I think he's legit mad at his dad for not being strong enough to survive a car crash.
So when I heard that today, first of all, I was like, listen, this is, again, I'm going to be a horrible person about a sensitive subject.
Okay.
Do you even know what day it is when you're out there, for God's sakes?
Oh, for sure.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
I mean, are people saying it's November 15th?
Well, I mean, Deb, listen, they're out there for 26 days. If you know that you started on what, November 1st,
I get that.
Simple math would let you know what day it
But
is.
one day is the same as the next a lot.
True, but
And
I think
they're not eating lots of food.
But if you're still upset about your dad dying, chances are that date lives in infamy with you. And I'm just saying, like, buddy, there is therapy for this, and a therapist could probably cure you in about a day.
Here's what it felt like to me. It felt like production went up to him and said, hey,
I like that we've made production the bad guy.
your dad died 25 years ago today. Make it something. That's what it felt like to me. Because
You might not be wrong about that.
I mean, he actually said the words, I'm mad at my dad because other people got in accidents and survived them, and my dad
He was
didn't.
mad at his dad for being a beta in a car crash and let the car crash kill him. Dude, Dale Earnhardt, whose son, Dale Earnhardt Jr., watched his dad die in a crash, and he doesn't blame him for that.
I know. It's just weird. Now, listen, I do get it. I think he was young, like 8 or 9 or something like that. So I do get that whole thing because he's been an athlete his whole life of like, where's my dad? Everybody else's dad is at the game with them. I mean, I get the longing for that.
But it's weird that your emotion is anger towards the guy who died.
Exactly.
We don't need to stay on the subject. I just think it's really bizarre
it's a
that
production thing that Danny
I just think it's weird that somebody could look at any camera and be like, you know who I'm pissed at?
My dad.
The dead dad.
Yeah.
That's who I'm mad at.
But, then I was really waiting for Jeff, and I would have known production did it because I was waiting for Jeff when Danny won immunity. I was waiting for Jeff to go, hey, because, Danny kind of fell to the ground and patted the ground.
Well, because it was the day his dad died.
And I was waiting for Jeff to say, hey, buddy, you seem really emotional. You want to explain what that's all about?
I mean, imagine if I said, hey, my dad died of cancer, and I'm furious at him for not being strong enough to beat cancer. Like, what? What? Okay.
I know.
Anyways, fast forward. Here's the immunity challenge. It's the holding individual cylinders, like wooden cylinders together lengthwise with 2 other handles. So it's pressure. You're applying pressure to it. And in the middle, there's a little metal ball that can't fall off at any point in time. And if you thought we were done with wrinkles, Deb, oh boy, we have more wrinkles.
Big wrinkle.
We introduced the Survivor Do or Die challenge. It's a deadly game of chance for the first person to lose the immunity challenge. If you participate and you're the first one out, you automatically fall into Survivor's Do or Die. If you succeed during the Do or Die, which happens at Tribal Council, you get to vote and you get immunity. If you lose, you're immediately out and there is no vote. So if you decide to participate in the challenge and you're the first one out, you go to the Survivor Do or Die. That takes place at Survivor. You have to do some challenge, or that takes place at Tribal. You have to do some challenge at Tribal, and if you lose, you're gone. That's equivalent to the vote. You're gone.
Remember, you have the option.
And now Jeff says you can decide to participate in this immunity challenge, or you can sit out. Because if you sit out, you know that you're not going to fall into the Survivor Do or Die.
But you don't have immunity.
There's no chance.
Right.
If you play and you're the first person out, there you go. So the 2 people who sat out, stop me if you've heard this one, Heather and Liana, both sat out. Now, I would be honest with you, I don't think I'd be good at that challenge. So I would probably sit out too, depending on my hierarchy in the game. So it's Deshaun, Danny, Ricard, Xander, and Erica who are playing. Jeff says go. They hold up the handles with the 3 cylinders and the ball in the middle. And in real time, 3 seconds into it, Deshaun, the one everybody's upset about, drops his ball. Everything crumbles to the ground. So there's no drama with it whatsoever.
Yeah.
The remaining 4 contestants, they're good to go. Second round, Erica dropped like 15 seconds before the round was about to end. In the final round with Ricard, Xander, and Danny, they last a really long time. But within seconds of one another, Ricard and Xander fall. And as Deb said, Danny ends up winning. So Danny has immunity. Now, the way it shakes out is there's 7 people left. 4 of them, Ricard, Heather, Xander, and Erica, have formed one alliance to help get Chantel out, remember? And the 3 that remain from that alliance, Danny, Deshaun, and Liana, don't have the numbers to get anybody else out. And it's looking bad for Liana, however you say her name, because Danny has immunity. Deshaun has a chance at getting immunity, which would just leave her.
Right.
Fast forward to tribal council. Real in-depth personal conversations about race, really emotional. I thought Leanna did a fantastic job of presenting a emotional and personal monologue. I think Deshawn's wasn't as well crafted, but I'm not going to punish somebody for not being able to speak as eloquently as somebody else about their experiences.
She was amazing.
She was phenomenal.
After what she said and the way she described, like anybody who doesn't understand the current thing that's going on for people of color.
Yep. Which is not current. Clearly, it's been systemic for
it's been systemic
centuries.
for years, but I'm saying just the conversation that we're having today. She put it beautifully.
She was great.
She was great.
What she said should echo in the halls of all things race related, not just CBS reality TV show. It was fantastic. The questions that I do have here, though, are they've been out there for 3 weeks. That's it.
Yeah, not that long.
Why does everybody cry? Why, in God's name, does everybody cry?
Okay, this group cries. So this group cries mostly, I think, out of frustration when they've screwed up.
Yep.
I mean, nobody's crying because they're truly sad. Nobody's crying. The time to have cried, if anybody was going to cry, was after that great speech she made.
Yeah, I agree.
For somebody like Heather to have broken down and going, oh my God, I finally get it. That would have been a pivotal moment. That didn't happen, by the way. But then Deshawn just cries over, I'm going to get, what's underlying it, I think, is I'm going to get voted out and I'm scared to death.
True.
That's what I think.
And here's what I wrote down. I said, do you want to know the ultimate way to play Survivor? Whatever your reason for forming an alliance, personalities, race, religion, or simply opportunity, whatever it is, when it's all said and done, it's an individual playing an individual's game. You are going to burn everybody at some point if you are declared the winner, which is why I think Survivor has the opportunity to be the ultimate equalizing game, meaning anybody from any race, from any creed, from any background can play this game, can play it well, and can walk away a millionaire. It just depends on if you've sided with the right people at the right time. I personally don't care about the race thing because you're eventually going to have to go after all of each other anyways.
Right. I mean, it would be like wonderful because we know that CBS and Survivor haven't been exactly kind to people of color.
They have not.
And
Jeff hasn't been kind to anybody in general.
Yeah, Jeff is so mean to everybody. But to have for African Americans be the final four.
You can say African Americans.
African Americans.
Not Afro. I don't like that you say Afro Americans.
African Americans.
There you go.
To be the final four would be awesome.
It would have been phenomenal. Except what did they do?
But they have to stick together.
But they played the game the way it should be played, which is who is the strongest of the 8 people left. It so happens that she's in our alliance. If they were smart, they would have waited one more week.
They played too early.
Yeah, if they would have played one more week, they would have got somebody else from the weaker team, and they could have looked at everybody and said, "Oh, she's right for the pick, and now let's get her out of here."
Which is why right now you and I have such respect for Ricard.
Yeah.
Because Ricard's thing has been all the way you're my number one.
But I'll burn you.
Until you're not.
Absolutely.
And then, by the way, girl, I'm going to cut you down.
So there is no vote. Instead, we are going straight into the do or die challenge with Deshawn. Now, I thought he was actually going to have to do something. I thought he was going to have to exhibit some skill. No. All it was
do or die challenge is such a weenie challenge.
There's 3 boxes.
3 boxes.
And 2 of the boxes are skulls, which mean you're gone. You're sent home. There is nothing for you to do. In the other box, there's a picture of a fire, which means your flame is still alive in the form of your torch. You have immunity. You get to go sit down with everybody else, and you get to vote. That's all it is. You just choose a box.
You called it. You said, let's make a deal.
So
that's
what
all
happens?
It is. Pick a door.
Jeff looks at Deshawn and says, which box would you like? Deshawn says, I'll take the far left box. And Jeff says, great. And in true Monty Hall fashion, says, let me show you one of the boxes you didn't choose, right? Let's make a deal. The price is right. And he opens up one of the boxes, and it's obviously a skull box because Jeff knows what's behind each box. Then he asks Deshawn, like any game show host, do you want to change your decision or do you want to stick with it? And Deshawn says, I trusted my gut with this one. I'm sticking with this one. And lo and behold, it's the right box. Deshaun gets to stay. And now Tribe is live again because now we're going to vote. That was the dumbest thing I have seen. You are leaving the fate of somebody up to just choosing a box. Overthought, overproduced, stupid.
It was so stupid. It should have required something. Don't you remember the days when they would ask him like a trick question that they had to kind of, because remember when they always used to say, it's a social game, it's a physical game, and so they would ask something about somebody, or they would ask something, earn it a little bit. This was literally like, what's behind, which hand do you want?
Yeah.
I mean, that's really what it was.
So they go to vote, and really it's going to come down to, is the majority going to vote out Liana, or is the minority, which happens to be comprised of minorities, did they swing an extra vote to vote out Ricard?
Right.
And Xander plays his extra vote, just fearing that his alliance might not be as stable as he hoped for. And 5 votes to 3, even though there's only 7 contestants left, Liana goes home. It's now Danny and Deshaun versus the foursome of Heather, Ricard, Xander, and Erica. And Deb and I are now down to mano y mano.
Yeah, and my
Ebony and Ivory.
I mean, I don't know. You might be in a better spot than I am now.
You think?
I was sure I had like one of the winning tickets.
Yeah.
And now, ooh.
No, I feel very good. I mean, we were sitting here week 2 and I was sweating bullets thinking that Xander was going to go home. And you could make the argument he's in the catbird seat of the right alliance.
If the other group sticks together, but it goes week to week, you don't know. The only 2 that I'm sure right now there are 4 people, and it's 2 groups of 2 that I think are super loyal. I believe that Erica and Heather are very loyal to one another. Okay.
I don't think that.
Oh, you don't?
I think that they'll go wherever the wind pushes them, and they're just happy to be in the majority right now.
Okay, maybe. But I do think that Deshaun and Danny appear to be together. But it's really Ricard or Xander's game, for sure.
And it's not lost on us, and Deb said this as we were watching it, in an entire season about race relations, and in an episode where a strong young Black woman made an impassioned speech, she's the one that was sent home.
It was mind-boggling.
Unbelievable.
To me. It was unbelievable.
That's going to do it for Survivor. I think we did this episode justice. It was at least better gameplay from a strategic standpoint. It gave us some talking points, which were nice. It felt more traditional, minus the stupid do or die thing, which I hope they never bring back. But I'm excited now because Deb and I are on an even playing field, and we get to cheer mightily for our people now because it's just we have 2 of the 6 people remaining, and that's honestly better than I probably thought we would do.
But keep in mind, we both still, because you and I always do this, there's some like straggler we pick up along the way that we always go, gosh, I kind of like this person. And we both do like Ricard. We would not be upset.
It's true.
If he made it all the way to
no way. I would. I'd be happy if Danny won too. All right, Deborah, you posed a question in the beginning of the show. Well, I did on your behalf, which was new to leadership. What can you do if you find yourself in a leadership role that's new to you, that's maybe uncomfortable, that you're not quite familiar with? What can somebody apply to themselves today to start the metamorphosis into becoming a capable and competent leader?
So I think one of the things that happens when somebody is first put in a leadership or, management type position is, if you haven't been there before, it can be a really daunting experience. Before you were only in charge of yourself, and now you're in charge of projects and work and people. It's a whole different deal, right?
Yep.
And I think some people walk in and with the best of intentions, but kind of start, I want to say, leading or managing a little too hard. We have talked about, actually, we talked about this in Survivor. Like, it never works when someone plays the game really hard from the beginning.
True.
They end up being one of the ones that everybody doesn't like, and they end up getting voted off.
Yep.
And while work is not a game of Survivor, you often hear people say, I'd love to vote him or her off the island. So we certainly don't want that to happen to somebody, in a newly formed position of leadership. One of the things that I think is you're brand new. You may or may not know some of the people that now work for you. But, you know, what you really want to do to be successful is create some long-lasting and meaningful relationships with those people. And that's not done overnight. So first thing is like, don't ostracize them, right? I mean, don't do things that would prevent you from really establishing that meaningful, trusting, long-lasting relationship you would hope to have with them. I mean,
Sure.
Stay away from that kind of stuff. I can remember, you know, we talk about Jill a lot on the podcast, and she is a friend of mine, I don't know, 15 years later. But Jill worked for me. I was hired for a company where I didn't know the industry at all. It was private aviation, and I was an executive vice president, and Jill was the marketing manager who reported to me. The first day I got there, they were the offices were being moved. We were going like from the first floor, I think, to the second floor or something like that. And Jill had worn casual clothes to work. I'd worn work clothes to work. And I'm just watching her like pack stuff up and, you know, load stuff out of drawers and put stuff in boxes. And, you know, what am I going to do? Just sit down and pretend like I'm working or bug her for some information? And so I can remember like taking my high heels and taking them off and taking my jacket off and saying, hey, let me help. And she was like, oh, dear God, no, you know? And I was like, no, let me help. And I really think like that was a pivotal moment for us, meaning what needed to be done that day is a whole office needed to get moved up to a different floor. And she took it upon herself to do it. And at that point, I could have been the most use by doing that with her, you know, kind of getting in the trenches with her and doing that. And I think that set the pace for our relationship, right? That I was a trustworthy, hardworking person, didn't know much about private aviation at the time, but I knew how I could help her, you know, when I could.
Yep.
And so, I mean, I would say we're friends 15 years later and haven't worked together in many, many years, but still have great respect and regard for one another personally and professionally. So I do think it is that kind of thing of not, I think you have to be very careful of not lording your position over anybody, really. And I think like rolling your sleeves up and, you know, like getting to really know your direct reports. And if that means rolling it up and helping them get some stuff done, because that is going to endear you to them,
Totally.
you know, and vice versa. I think the other thing too is if you want to talk about doing something formally, is the people that report to you directly really make time for them. I mean, like, you know, I can ask somebody like, bring them into my office. Hey, what do you want to do? What do you want to be? What do you think your job is now? What are your biggest challenges? Where are the opportunities? But I also want to know like, hey, like, what do you do outside of work? Like, what do you care about? What's important to you? And so I think having all of those conversations and really taking an interest genuinely, you know, in people really helps you manage them later. I think like when somebody is doing work, I think there's a lot you can learn. You can think that you know all about the operation you're managing, but you don't necessarily know all about the work everybody does. And while I am not paid at that point to know how to do what every single person does, I think asking clarifying questions, really showing an interest in what they do, and having them be able to be the experts in their own arena with me is hugely valuable. So I guess really what I'm saying kind of in a nutshell is don't go in and act like the boss. Do you know what I mean? That is the exact wrong thing to do. I'm going to say, with your people. Be with your people, get to know them, understand them. I mean, look at the things they do well, be sensitive to their pain points, build those relationships, and then sometime after that, start to manage.
I was going to say, there's this old adage that, you know, says treat people the way you want to be treated. And if you think about that, that makes sense if you treat yourself well and if everybody likes the same things that you like. But really, you should treat people the way they want to be treated. And as a manager, it's your job to understand the way they need to be treated in a professional setting, meaning, is there somebody who needs praise? Is there somebody who's money motivated? Is there somebody who appreciates time off, right? We've talked about all that stuff before, but as a manager, especially as a new manager, if you're rising up from the ranks of having been their peer, what you should do is rest on the information that you already know about them. And yes, it could be uncomfortable because now you're their manager or you're their boss, but you can still connect with them in the ways that you know are meaningful and purposeful to them, to where your message doesn't feel hollow or your message doesn't feel like it's you throwing your newfound weight around. Instead, it's saying the dynamics changed. We still understand each other. I still understand what you want, and you still understand what I need from you. How can we blend our old relationship with our new relationship where it still motivates you to be the best version of yourself without alienating the new form of our relationship?
Kevin, you said it perfectly. I genuinely believe that. And I do think sometimes people go into a new management position. They've really wanted it. It's something they've looked after, like they've kind of lusted after for a while, and they finally get there and they just get caught up in what they think it should be. And they start, I'm going to say, really playing a role that isn't real yet. And they don't have the relationships, to make it real. And then that's when people very early in the game are like, not my cup of tea.
Yep.
Here's the truth. You can't be a successful manager if you don't have a good relationship with the people that work for you.
That's true.
That is your team. I mean, if we were to call, like, you'll do better than I, you'll jump in here. But Tom Brady doesn't get to be Tom Brady without the rest of the team.
Nope.
And so that's how it works. In the workplace every single day. And so I suspect that a Tom Brady or somebody like him spends a lot of time talking, getting to know, and encouraging the rest of the team so that on game day, they can carry it off together, right?
Taking your metaphor a step further and hopefully not alienating anybody who doesn't know sports, Tom Brady is a quarterback, and Tom Brady might be a great quarterback, but Tom Brady is handing the ball off to a running back. Tom Brady's throwing a pass to wide receivers or tight ends. Tom Brady wants to be in the right place for his offensive linemen to know where he's at without looking at him, right? So how does Tom Brady get the best out of his players? Where do you want the ball? Where can I put it in your hands? Do you like it high? Do you like it low? If I hand the ball off to you, do you like it in the middle of your chest? Do you like it higher? Do you like it lower? How many steps back do I need to take for me to give it to you in an expeditious way? If we know that this is going to be a long pass and you know that you need to block for me, know that I'm going to be a little to your left. So if you're going to push a defender, don't push him to the left, push him to the right. He needs to have those conversations with all of the surrounding players to make his job easier by understanding what they want when they want it. And that doesn't mean that's going to happen perfectly, but he's going to try to achieve that. And in trying to achieve that, he lets his teammates know that he's going to try to do right by them when the time comes.
Well, and you're right. The conversation back and forth isn't just how Tom can do it right to get a touchdown in this case.
You practice it
but
over
you practice
and
it
over.
over and over. And it's also Tom learning what they need.
Yep.
Because in some cases, Tom has to do what they want. It won't work unless he can do it the way they want it.
Totally.
So I think great analogy, Kevin, actually.
I think you used the analogy. I just expanded upon it. So Deb, great analogy.
Well, thank you. Thank you. So anyways, come on, people. If you have the fortune of being promoted into a management position and that is the job you want, then please, I beg you, first and foremost, build significant relationships with the people that report to you.
Because that's what you've been employed to do. You've been employed to manage.
Yes.
And you manage people.
Yep.
Because those people then do the work.
Exactly.
And so if you don't know the people who need to do the work in order for you to be successful, you're not managing.
100%.
Are you ready for the surprise, Deb? I mean, it's not really a surprise to you. You know it because we experienced it together. But hey,
it was a surprise. It was a surprise.
Everybody listening, are you ready for your surprise? It's going to blow your minds. Are you ready? I can't hear you. Are you ready? Here it comes. Yep. That is right. They dropped a special holiday episode of The Great British Bake Off, and Deb told me about it, and we're so excited. We're so excited. We're so excited. So I was traveling, and you picked me up yesterday and said, did you know that there's a new episode of the Great British Bake Off? And I said, what? And you said, no, it's the holiday episode. And I was ecstatic because it's methadone. It's our version of being able to come off of 10 weeks of the Great British Bake Off. I always am interested in why they bring back the people that they bring back. And they're very candid about that this was filmed in May, even though it's a Christmas episode. We also know very clearly up front that Noel is not there because Noel was at the birth of his new child, which I don't know if anybody knows this.
Second child.
Noel is like 52.
So apparently Noel...
Which I don't know why I'm pooping on Noel. I'm 37. If I ever have kids, I'll probably be 52.
So after I heard that, then I went and Googled, Noel and his wife and everything. And apparently she was a co-host on some British show with him.
Okay.
And he said she was just so freaking adorable. He had to marry her.
Is she kind of like emo-y goth like him too?
No, she didn't look it. She's dark. Dark hair. She was lovely.
Okay.
Yeah. No, she was lovely. She didn't seem like, because like he will joke with some of the women. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the ones he likes are like always like strange little witchy characters.
They hover around his area of the world.
No, she looked normal. Totally normal.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So they replaced him with Tom Allen, not Tim Allen from Home Improvement. Tom Allen, who's the guy who married Roseanne Barr? Tom Arnold.
Tom Arnold.
Not to be confused with Tom Arnold.
No.
Tom Allen.
This is like a British guy that probably this is what I think. He looks familiar.
He looks like you would know him.
I don't know him.
If I don't know him, Deb for sure doesn't know him.
Yeah.
But then I remember Deb exclusively watches European television.
It's true.
So she could know him. But he also is on a bunch of other GBBO spinoff, like side shows, like whether they're like internet-based shows or like, the show after the show. I think he's hosted a bunch of those. So it was like the logical thing for production to bring him in because he at least knows the world of the tent. So No, Sub and Tom, Christmas special, filmed in May. Matt, heavier in May than he was for this past season. But we still have both Prue and Paul judging. So here's who they bring back.
Well, wait.
Yes?
Talk about Prue's hair first.
Deb, I've done this for however much. I promise you I will never, ever forget the important stuff.
Okay.
So they bring back James. James, the chubby bald guy, he made it through halfway of season 8. Always had big smiles, always had bad teeth, was a nice guy though.
Super jovial. And what I remember about James, while I don't remember any of his baking specifically, what my recollection of James would have been is either hit it out of the ballpark or totally failed.
I think that sounds right. Then they brought back Rosie, the vet from season 10 who made it to the semifinals. Always very even keel. And I remember her being engineer-like. She always, the baking element she was good with. Sometimes she just lost track of time.
She also had, I thought she was pretty funny. Very dry sense of humor.
Super dry.
Super dry, but funny.
Yeah, very funny.
Yeah.
Then they brought back Christelle 1.0, who's Ruby.
It's called Ruby.
A season 9 finalist.
Drop dead gorgeous.
She is so good looking.
So beautiful.
So unbelievably good looking. And you might remember her cake was the cake that in between filming scenes, they just set a camera up because they knew it was going to fall and the thing tumbled to the ground.
Everybody, every once in a while they let you see, depending on the time of year, the people, they're like outside the tent.
Yep.
Stuff's baking or whatever. They're killing time. And everybody was outside the tent.
No, it was over. The competition was over.
Oh, is that
it was
what
like
happened?
7 contestants trying to help her keep her cake up. And every single person knew they're going to walk away and this thing's going to fall. Because who's just setting up a camera?
Yeah. Yeah. And
without knowing it.
And it fell. It fell and knocked stuff out. And, but Ruby's great.
She's so beautiful.
She was in the finals. Like she did good.
She was indeed. And then the last one is Jamie from season 10. He's a twin. He literally sucked at every single thing he did. He was voted off in week 2. I hated him on his season.
Yeah.
He was part of the season where I think everybody felt like he was getting way too young. Yes. Remember that?
Well, and we didn't think they were very good bakers either.
No.
Yeah.
he laughed at everything. He thought it was funny. Listen, I'm not trying to tell anybody to take GBBO serious, but if you're a contestant, you should take it somewhat serious because there are hundreds of thousands of people that apply for this. And he was just like, isn't it cool that I'm here? Watch me do nothing good the entire time.
Well, also too, like, I'm just going to say, like, his hair is weird. I don't care that he has pierced ears, but the earrings are weird that he wears. Yeah. He's goofy. And you know what he doesn't have, Kev? He doesn't
baking talent.
Well, he doesn't have that for sure, but he doesn't have respect for the tent.
I agree.
And that is offensive to me.
And his eyes are, he always has like those raccoon circles around his eyes. Like he's been partying nonstop.
Yeah.
I just don't like him. I didn't like him then. I don't like him now.
Don't like his blonde tips. Don't like his haircut.
He occupies some space where they're like, we need somebody who's kind of good looking, who might be able to do some chaotic thing. Remember that dumbass Jamie? Let's bring him back.
Yeah, let's bring a meathead onto GBBO. Yep. That would be great.
And the only other note, which Deb spoiled, is Prue's hair is blue. It is
blue.
Very, very, very blue.
But Kev, does it look great?
It looks awesome.
Her hair, I'm telling you, and I don't know if it's if they put a filter on the lens or anything, because I think we all know what Prue looks like. Yeah. Prue isn't trying to hide her age, right?
Nope.
But that blue reflects onto her skin. I think she looks amazing with it.
It looked fantastic. I mean, listen, I'm one who can bleach my hair and dye it all sorts of colors. I would happily do blue if it looked like that.
She looked amazing.
I agree. So their signature bake, 12 festive-themed miniature panettones. Think brioche cake. And what was the one thing that they told everybody? Don't put a lot of booze in it and don't put a lot of fruit in it because it's a light batter. And Deb, what did everybody put inside of their panettones?
It was so funny. Well, and you just did what I also was going to comment on. Some people call it panettones. Some people call it panettones, right? So there is an E on the end, and I'm just assuming both are right because it was interchangeable.
Oh, yeah.
Every single person in their design, like Prue literally said, not too much alcohol, not too much fruit because it'll affect the yeast. Laden with alcohol and fruit. Yep. All of them. I mean, just heavy, heavy laden. And how did that go, Kev?
I don't think any of the 4 contestants had their batter proof. No. They proofed it 2 separate times. The first time it proved and it was good. And the second time when they added all that crap to it, it did nothing.
Nothing. It looked like they pulled it out and it looked like the same thing. Yeah.
And so here were the remarks for Ruby. Pretty and pretty heavy with a stodgy texture because of too much fruit, but lovely flavor. With James, wonderful looking, that lacks uniformity, but tastes too strong of the individual flavors and is more cake-like than panettone. Jamie, underproofed, thought it was raw with okay flavors. So glad to see Jamie's picking right back up to where he left.
And we knew, I said when they were doing the descriptions of them, because whoever they have, like the great graphic artist that does the illustrations, which look fabulous, right? Clearly. I mean, they're just beautiful.
That's probably my favorite underlying plot of GBBO is the animations never, ever look like the final product.
I would be like, give me that as a souvenir of what I was supposed to make. But his looked stupid.
He was stupid. He put marzipan football helmets on top of it, which didn't resonate with anybody because they're all English. And then Rosie's looked amazing with beautiful decoration, but the flavor was intense and powerful, but underproved. So they all missed the brief severely in the form of the actual bake.
Everything looked like a cake or a muffin or a pudding. It is really bread. It's like a brioche. Yeah. I mean, it's like bread.
I mean, he says it's brioche. Think brioche cake.
But Rosie's, did you remember Rosie said this and it caught my ear? She said, it's going to at least look like a wonderful little village where elves live.
That's what you needed.
Boy, did it.
It sure did.
Yeah.
The technical, a quick Christmas pudding with scratch-made mincemeat filling. If you're wondering what that looks like, a Christmas pudding really just looks like a severely burned, oversized bullet. That's what it looks like.
So
it does not look appetizing.
It is so dark.
Yeah.
And looks so wet.
Can you explain, by the way, what mincemeat is? Because when you hear mincemeat, you clearly think savory.
So it's not meat.
No.
Let's be very clear that it's not meat. You know, the English love the whole, you know how we make fun of the fruitcake thing?
Yep.
And nobody ever eats it, at least nobody I know eats it, right? They really love that kind of food. I mean, like
Love
a
it.
lot. And so what it is minced, but it's all like dried fruit and nuts is what it is. So I guess the meat is referring to the nuts.
It feels like they took the recipe for fruitcake and they inversed it, where they said the majority is actually going to be dried fruit, and the bread component is going to be like the minimal. It's just going to be there to bind all of the dried fruit together.
Only enough to hold it together.
Yep.
And it was, if you watch them stir it, it was soggy wet.
Here's the other thing I don't like about it. What's the baking element that they used? How did they bake it?
In a bowl with a microwave.
With a microwave.
It's the weirdest thing in the world.
You cooked it in the microwave.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it's not good, and I'm not saying that if a professional made it, I wouldn't try it. I mean, if I ate gluten, it's not my thing. It doesn't look appetizing. I don't like the idea that you have to add a sauce to it, the creme anglaise.
But wait, Kev, the weird thing in the middle.
And then you have to put a full tangerine
with the peel on
in the middle of it while you're microwaving it.
I mean, how weird is that?
I didn't like it. I didn't like that challenge. I mean, listen, I get it that it's a Christmas special. I get it that they probably filmed all of this in one day, so they had to keep the technical within a normal, like a small time constraint. I didn't like it. None of it looked good to me. I would not have tried any of it.
But didn't they make it sound like every English household makes this?
They probably do. I mean, they probably do.
Oh.
At the point that you can have a quick recipe of it, that means that enough people want to make it. They just don't want to spend the time doing it. And that's what this was.
Yeah, and I do want to say it is completely offensive to make the main component in a microwave.
I agree.
Yeah.
Coming in fourth place, that trashy baker Jamie, then followed by the beautiful Ruby, the always smiley James, and then the standout Rosie, which then led to the showstopper, an illusion cake representing a Christmas feast with edible decoration. Mm-hmm. I just have my notes here again, and I just want to reiterate this. I hate Jamie. I love James. I hate Jamie. He was from the season I hated. I hate his face. I hate that they let him back on the show.
Okay, so I hate Jamie too.
Those are the notes that I have in my phone.
I don't hate. And I do hate his face.
Yeah.
You know what? He's got a punchable face.
Sure. You could unload on that face, and everybody who doesn't know why you're fighting would be like, I get it.
I get it. But I want to shave his freaking head. I hate his hair. His hair is so offensive to me.
As somebody who has bleached their hair before, I did it for a small stretch of time. I don't think it's cool anymore. Yeah. I don't know that it's on trend. He has done the thing where you put the cap on your head and you pull the hair out, and then you bleach the exposed hair. We should all aspire to fight Jamie.
Yes. Well, and here's the thing. No one can convince me that in England that's a cool thing.
You're trying to tell me he's the only person that said he would show up.
Why did we pick a guy that only made it to round 2?
That we know sucks at the core of what this show is about, baking. His quick technical whatever Christmas pudding was only okay because he had to push buttons, and guess what? He screwed that up.
I mean, I'm trying to think of people. Raul could have come back.
Oh my God, would we have loved Raul?
I mean, which Raul are you talking about? The weird Raul?
Yes.
Oh well. Yeah, that Raul. I was thinking of the other Raul.
There's only been one Raul.
There's a Raul.
You're thinking of Rav.
No, there's a good, it's called Raul Bakes is his Instagram number. His Instagram handle. Yeah.
But it's the weird guy.
No, it's not the weird guy. It's the good looking older
I don't care.
Anybody.
Anybody other than Jamie.
Yeah.
And so here's what they essentially came up with. Jamie,
who's fascinated with everything American.
That's what he wants to be. He wants to live in America. They said, impressive display, bitter cake, lacking sweetness, but tasty ancillary items.
But describe what it was.
It was a bucket of chicken.
It was Kentucky Fried Chicken. It had the stripes on the bucket.
A bucket of chicken with fries that he made churros out of. He made some type of corn on a stick. I've never seen that before. And
that was his feast.
That was his feast. That was his Christmas feast. Fast food.
It was terrible.
Hate that guy. Ruby, she did, I forget what the movie was. It was from a movie, but it was a spaghetti dish.
Elf.
Oh, Elf, Buddy
Yeah.
the Elf. It was his favorite food. Spaghetti with Pop-Tarts and like candy on it. She made that and it looked exquisite.
It looked like a party cake. Didn't
Totally.
It? Yeah, it was amazing.
And they said, witty and unusually clever, lovely sponge, melt in your mouth biscuits, terrific baking, and neat idea. James, he made a ham with like Brussels sprouts and all the
and
trappings.
Ham looked like a ham.
Looked like a ham. They said very clever visual with wow factor, rich and dense but flavorful, and overall well executed. And then there was Rosie. And Rosie's was what?
Oh my God. Rosie's was a roasted turkey with the legs and the wings and every trimming that you would have with a huge turkey dinner. So mashed potatoes, gravy. But interesting, they do mashed and roasted and serve them both.
Yeah. It looked like as real of a real turkey
gosh.
as you could make out of confections.
And in fact, Paul said, my eyes and my brain and my taste buds are confused because I'm so convinced it's mashed potatoes and gravy. And yet when it hits my mouth, it's dessert.
They said incredible and some of the best illusions they've seen, not in the tent, that they've seen. Here's what they said. Amazing job. No faults. Superb. Big success. And as she walked back to her station with her dessert in hand, you see Paul say, hold on. He starts walking towards her, picks up his speed, and late but welcome, gives her a Hollywood handshake.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing.
It was very cool. Needless to say, if you couldn't tell, Rosie was clearly the star baker. She redeemed herself. I was happy she won. I hope they never invite Jamie back to anything. I hope he's excommunicated. I hope they kick him out of all things GBBO. I hated him last time. I hate him more this time because I only had four people to look at, and he was one of them. Was not happy with it. But I was happy that GBBO came back for a holiday special. We are always appreciative of that.
And I was really happy with the other three.
Yep.
And it was so funny at the end because it was May and they made them all bundle up in down and scarves.
Although, to be fair, it could have been cold in England in May.
Yes. But they were pretty bundled up.
It was funny.
Yeah.
All right, Deb, let's wind this down by saying what we are thankful for this week, and I'll buy you time to think about dinner.
Okay, so the thankful this week, I do want to say this because I think people that know us personally and know us well know that when we talk about the situation with Dad, that there have been, Friday was a very, very tough day in our household. And Dad was not doing well, and there was just a lot to do, and he was home. It was just a bad day. That's, what you can call it. But I do think, I want to say number one is that Dad listens to the podcast. So he's aware of everything we say.
True.
There's a hugely serious side to this thing. And it's not lost on us ever, not for a second. I do want to say thank you to Daddy for being such a good sport and letting us talk about his situation with cancer and, his fight as it goes on and the journey that he's on, because I do think it's therapeutic to some degree for both you and I to do that. But I also want to say that I'm really grateful that, our friends and Dad and family have given us the space to let us be us at any point in time, which means sometimes we're laughing about all this stuff. You're referring to a catheter as a urine briefcase. And sometimes, not normally on the podcast, but we are a mess. We are a puddle. We are not happy. We are scared. We are fearful. We are all the things that you can imagine anybody would be in going through something like this. And I just think we have been surrounded by a group of incredibly wonderful people that let us be all of those things. And I'm grateful for it.
Hear, hear. I agree. I echo that sentiment as well. My thankful is I found myself in the middle of Pennsylvania, as they coin it, in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And I was helping document a day of giving with an audiology group called A&E Audiology. And some of them listen to this podcast. Hello to everybody. And they were providing hearing aids to patients who could not afford them. And this is the first time I've ever done something like this. It was the first time I've ever bore witness to it. And it was so cool to see these people who suffer from any type of form of hearing loss, whether extreme hearing loss or mild hearing loss, be able to have everything put into their ears and then have them switched on, then have somebody say something to them for the first time. And a lot of their first response with a smile on is, whoa, that's loud. And it's funny because these people who are clearly suffering to hear,
right,
their first response is something being loud, but it's a smile. It's never a negative thing. They're happy that something is actually loud. And to be able to witness that, to be able to watch people give them hearing, give them a sense back, give them a form of freedom back, super freaking cool. I went up to all of them afterwards and I told them how wonderful it was and how appreciative I was to be able to see all of that stuff. I reminded them that, you know, they do the work they do matters. It changes people's lives for the better, and super duper humbling to be able to walk away from an experience like that and know that at least I will have been a part of documenting something that will hopefully lead to more and more people getting help. I thought that was very cool.
I have been on a couple of those events and experienced them, and they've been incredible as well. But I have said to groups of audiologists several times, you know, when I've been able to have the privilege of speaking to them, because I think sometimes they forget they are miracle workers. Yep. They are changing people's lives. I want to say audiologists as a group are some of the kindest, most humble, most compassionate people I've ever met, and they love to give. So when you're part of something like that and you get to watch it and you get to experience it, and somebody, it's almost like saying to somebody, I know you never thought you were going to own a Mercedes, but here, you know, and then they stick them in their ears and this little tiny, beautiful, sophisticated technology takes over. It's amazing.
It's very, very cool. Deb, we are out of Thanksgiving leftovers.
I think we have some cranberry sauce left.
Listen, for somebody who proclaims that cranberry sauce is her favorite thing, that's the only thing that exists still in that refrigerator.
Yeah.
Tell us, what's for dinner this evening?
I'm thinking of making white chicken chili. What do you think?
White chicken chili. I think it sounds delicious. I've had it before, and I look forward to having it again.
I don't think we've done it on the podcast, have we?
Didn't say that. I said I've had it before.
Oh, okay.
Whether or not it's been on the podcast, I don't know. Please let us know if it's been on the podcast. I don't think it's been on the podcast, but if it has been, we'll just delete that post. You won't know. That's going to do it for this episode of the Deb and Kev podcast. Remember to like, rate, and review wherever you listen to this podcast, and you can watch us on all of our social channels at Deb and Kev Pod, and you can watch our smiling faces at our YouTube channel at Deb and Kev Pod. Do you have anything else?
I'm good.
I'm good too. Mom, I love you.
I love you, baby.
We'll see you guys on Thursday.
Thank you for listening to the Deb and Kev podcast. Remember to like and subscribe wherever you listen to this podcast. Follow Deb and Kev on Facebook and on Instagram and Twitter at Deb and Kev Pod.